The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Hello everyone and welcome to The Best in the World with Richard Parr. This is probably one of the most fun episodes we've had on the programme. It is with the Adventureman, Jamie McDonald. He's quite the character, as you'll hear on the show. And what he achieved in his life and in his career is absolutely incredible. Jamie broke the world record for static cycling. Yes, that's cycling on one of those stationary bikes like you get in the gym, but he did it in a big marquee in Gloucester. And listen to this, he cycled for 268 hours, 32 minutes and 44 seconds to break the world record. Absolutely incredible. And he did it just after he'd cycled 14,000 miles from Bangkok to Gloucester. Incredible stuff. He tells us amazing stories from that journey, including how he was shot at in Afghanistan. You really want to listen to that. And then after he broke the world record, he then travelled from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific coast in Canada by running without the aid of a support crew. All for charity, and you can help support Jamie by buying his book, Adventureman, Anybody Can Be a Superhero. I've got a link to it on the notes page of this podcast. Speaking of books, if you'd like to support our show, what you can do is you can try out Audible. Audible is one of the leading suppliers of audiobooks in the world. If you'd like to test out their service, just go to audibletrial.com/best and they'll give you a 30-day free trial. You also get a free audiobook download. Unfortunately, Jamie's book isn't on there on Audible, but they do have over 180,000 titles for you to choose from. In fact, recently I was listening to Zlatan Ibrahimovic's audiobook. I'd really recommend you listen to that. But that code once again is audibletrial.com/best. It is a product I personally use and I would highly recommend you try out as well. All right, we've got lots to learn on today's episode. It's lots of fun as well. Let's listen to the best in the world, the Adventureman, Jamie McDonald.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Jamie McDonald, static cycling world record holder. Welcome to The Best in the World with Richard Parr. So much to talk about with you beyond the actual static cycling world record because you've covered and completed so many amazing feats. But let's start at the beginning. And you had a huge health problem at the start of your career, spending the first 9 years of your life in and out of hospital. Why don't you explain exactly why that was to begin with?
Yeah, I guess for the first 9 years of my life, I spent most of the time or a lot of the time in hospital. I've got this weird condition called syringomyelia, and symptoms as a kid, I had immune deficiency, epilepsy, and sometimes I'd get lots of pain in my legs and sometimes I couldn't move them. There'd be, at night, sometimes it would feel like there'd be weighted bricks on them. But about kind of 9 years old, my mum put a piece of string in the back garden, and she kind of said, "Come on, Joe, let's play tennis." And I remember feeling like I didn't really want to play, but I went out there and started cracking the ball, and that was when I kind of got my love for movement. And in that year, like the symptoms gradually disappeared, and I'm really lucky that happened because I should have lost my mobility or potentially even my life. And so then, yeah, I was like a dog with a ball. I just wanted to play as much tennis as I possibly could. And I had like this big vision to be like, Tim Henman or Roger Federer. But at 16, I realized really, Richard, that I was just really, really untalented and bad at tennis.
How good did you get? Did you get to any kind of county level or anything like that?
I did get to county level, yeah. So I ended up playing for Gloucestershire. But, I don't know if I ever really believed that I should have been the best. I think deep down I realised I was a hard worker, but I just knew I just didn't have the ability.
So you said that was about at the age of 16, you realised you weren't going to be the next Tim Henman. What was going through your mind then? What was going to be the next stage of your life when you came to that decision?
I guess I wasn't really I projected of being at Wimbledon, obviously, but then once I let go of that dream, I was really lucky and blessed actually that I had someone in my life called Kieran Montague that taught me tennis for free because we never really had much money, and he believed in me. But I think that nugget there, that he believed in me and saw potential in me as an individual, not just with tennis, but he believed in me as a person. So it was really heartbreaking that I had to actually tell him that I was never gonna continue on tennis, and I felt this loyalty and that I'd let him down. I became a tennis teacher, which I was really proud about myself anyway, as a tennis teacher. But then I just felt inside I wasn't fulfilling my full potential. So I saved up £20,000 in the end to try and save up to get a house. And right at the last minute, I got that gut feeling in your stomach. When the gut feeling when you know something's wrong, but you don't quite know what it is. And I pulled out and I didn't get the house. And that's kind of when I started to reflect on my life and being sick as a kid and actually what is it that I want. And I had, that was it really.
So what was it you decided you wanted?
I ended up going in. I had £20,000 in my bank, which is like the most money I ever had in my life. And I then went to the hospital that helped me as a kid, and I connected with the charity there and had a look at how they helped kids. And I walked out and I thought, you know what? If it wasn't for the hospital, I probably wouldn't be here today. And actually, maybe I'm in a position where I can give back. So yes, I walked out, and once upon a time, which I know this is a little bit bonkers. Right, but I once upon a time heard this guy who ended up cycling around the world, and I've met him, like this guy, and he's just a normal guy.
Where did you meet him?
I just met him, like a brief chat, and that was it. It was really not a pinnacle moment at all. But when I heard about him cycling around the world, I thought, wow, I can't believe someone like him's doing something like that. So anyway, I kind of connected the two and thought maybe I'm in a position to give back, and actually maybe I could kind of cycle. So I bought myself a terrible old bike for 50 quid out of the newspaper, and then I chose to fly out to Bangkok in Thailand to cycle back to Gloucester.
Wow, that is a long way. So what type of countries did you go through?
Shall I reel them off, Richard?
Do it. Let's go for it.
Right, here we go. I'm getting good at this, really fast, like machine gun. Okay, so Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and then Europe. Europe was so quick that I actually can't even remember the countries that I cycled through there. But yeah, it was 14,000 miles in the end.
Wow. Just from a logistics point of view, that sounds like an absolute nightmare regarding visas.
Well, the thing is, Richard, I don't really plan anything, so I just kind of went out on kind of winged it. I didn't know what I was doing, and I never really cycled before. But I just thought, it would all work out. I had to put trust. And I say that in the fact that, when I arrived there on day one, this little nut came off my bike, and I remember just melting down because the realization of I can't fix this bike because I don't know nothing about cycling. And then I'd locked myself in a hotel and puked on the toilet and thought, what have I got myself into? But the next day I then I just got cycling and said, come on, all you need to do is a few miles, and that's it. So that's exactly what I'd done. And with each day that unfolded, I felt like, that's all I really needed to focus on. And so, yeah, I mean, from a logistical side, it was turned into a bit of a nightmare. I got most of my visas on the border. Money goes very far. And then the only time I had to really start to plan things, because I had no choice, was once I started going through the stands. So Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, and I had to get the visas in the countries before I arrived. So, for example, Turkmenistan, they only allowed to give me a 5-day transit visa, and you had to give a specific date when you enter and a specific date when you leave. And so I'm pedaling through Tajikistan and Uzbekistan to get there. And then I finally get there. I'm a day late, so I've only got 4 days. And then I had to cycle through the desert and cover 500 miles through about 40-degree heat to then make it into Iran.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it was. So from a logistical side, it was tough, but it all worked out, I guess.
How much things were you carrying?
I had two bags on the side of the bike. They're called panniers for any adventure cyclists out there, I guess. And then, so you got 2 bags on the front and then 2 bags on the back.
Oh, wow. And so how many miles, how many kilometers were you cycling each day, would you guesstimate?
I probably started off as I was a big wussy at the beginning because I wasn't a cyclist. So I probably started out doing like 20, 30 miles, and that was brutal. But it really quickly, within a few months, I then was pedaling like sometimes like over 100 miles.
Wow. And, for anyone who doesn't normally cycle very often, you very often get a sore bum. So was that just something you had to cope with? Were you able to get any ointment? Did you have to stop for anything like that? Just man up, really. I love that. Let's talk about manning up, because psychologically there must have been days, like you said about puking at the start, but there must have been certain days where you just wanted to give it all up. You must have been thinking, why am I doing this? And what were the type of things that you would do to try and get rid of those thoughts and push yourself further?
It's, I guess, a really good question, actually. So I think as that journey unfolded, the adventure itself, so there was always people and weird people and different foods and cultures that were kind of stimulants to kind of occupy your mind. But when things got really tough, like when you started to get a bit like, what am I doing out here? There was, when I was in Tajikistan, I think I was 6 months on the road, and I suddenly I started to break. And I felt so lonely, and although I was meeting people, none of them could really speak English, so I just felt really isolated, and I broke down into tears. And I had to do a lot of soul searching and the reasons of why I was doing it. And I guess in the end, fundraising became a huge motivation in the end, and I didn't want to let anyone down back home with people that were following the journey through social media and that had donated. And that became the real focus to kind of get me out of that kind of dark hole, I guess.
What was the worst moment on the whole trip?
Worst moment was being caught on the Afghanistan border, being shot at.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up one morning and there was fireworks just going off all over the place, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. And I thought it was fireworks until I realised that it was actually gunfire. And then I went out and I was doing YouTube videos at the time, so I started filming it, but there was lights on my camera, so I started literally waving it in the middle of a war zone in dark. So there was just lights flashing, so I ended up getting shot at, which is completely my fault. And luckily I wasn't hit, and after 30 hours, some guy came in and said, look, you need to get out of here now. There's a 2-hour ceasefire, and it's going to get a lot worse after here, so, you need to get out.
I bet that was when you pedalled your fastest.
Yeah, yeah, pedalled my heart out.
And what was the best moment of the whole trip?
I think the best moment, do you know what, actually, the best moment that kind of changed the way I feel about the world. So when I went up to Iran, this is like coming out of the war zone. So I come up to Iran and everyone was shooting me messages to say, don't go into Iran, because they just burnt down the British embassy. And I thought,
that, yeah.
I'm thinking, this is probably, now I'm asking for trouble. I've just come out of, now I'm asking for it. And I crossed the border, and all I had to do was just believe in that I had to trust the people, and because I trusted people all the way along. And as I came across the border, this guy came up to me and he said, "Where are you from?" And in my head, I was just thinking, "Sound from Italy." And in the end, I just thought, "No, no, come on, keep trusting." And I said, I'm from England." And then he said, "You, me, we're not brothers." And I said, "No." And then he walked off, and I was thinking, "Oh no, this isn't good." And then he came back, and he handed me a cup of tea.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. And with moments like that, are they the type of things which you've been able to take from that journey and kind of bring into the rest of your life with the belief in people, or are there other things which came from that journey you had which you now use in your everyday life at all?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. Yeah, no one can take that experience that I had. And when I started the cycling journey, I never knew I was going to come up with those experiences. So, oh, absolutely, yeah, it fills your soul and makes you feel just so much better about the world and the people in it, and no one can take that away from me. It's there, it's cemented in.
And tell us about the moment when you finally returned home. How did that feel?
Yeah, well, I finally returned it to the children's hospital, and my mum was there and dad was there, so we got a big, massive hug. And then I ended up doing a lap in King's Own Rugby, Gloucester Rugby Stadium, and it was like 10,000 fans, and I went onto the pitch with the rugby players, which is a real honour because they do not let people do that. And so I just felt incredibly proud, and it raised £10,000. And afterwards, I was thinking, well, actually, I'd really like to raise more. And I had an idea in Iran because I ended up cycling like 240 miles to try and make one of the visas, and I'd done it in one go. And I thought, wow, I didn't know I could do that. I was like, I wonder if that's a world record. And then I Googled it, and then I found the world record for the longest ever bike ride non-stop. And it came up with this Italian guy, and basically on a static bike, and he cycled for 10 days non-stop. I was like, that's impossible. Anyway, by the time I got home, I was thinking, actually, well, if he did it, then it might be possible. So I'm like, right. I'm like, let's go for it. So then as soon as I got home, I then just thought I'd strike while the iron's hot, when I was physically strong, mentally strong. And then I went to attempt a world record for sitting on a static bike for as long as I possibly could.
That's incredible. So how long a gap are we talking about from you returning to you starting this world record?
A few days.
A few days?
Yeah.
See, when I read about this, I assumed that, you relaxed, you slept for a week, you went to a jacuzzi, you went and got a massage, and then 6 months down the line you went and did this world record attempt, but you did a few days. Wow. Okay, so, and this was in a marquee, right?
Yeah.
And so the simple question is things like, all right, peeing and eating. How did all of that work?
Okay, so from logistical side, when you're sitting on the bike, every hour you cycle, you can accumulate a 5-minute break.
Okay.
And so if you cycle for 4 hours, you can accumulate a 20-minute break, and so on. And the really tough part is that you had to keep above 12 miles an hour every hour. And if it was under 12 miles over the hour, then it was the end of the record.
Oh, wow.
And so the record holders before me were taking 20-minute cat naps to get as far as they could. But I was really blessed that somebody came across me and kind of said, I think if you're going to really break this record, you need more sleep. So how would you feel about cycling for 24 hours non-stop and then trying to accumulate a 1.5 hour sleep cycle that you could take every night? And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about this. So I just kind of trusted him. And I thought, right, well, that's what we'll do then. I'll have a go. So I got pedaling, and on the very first night, I led down and I tried to sleep, and I just couldn't. There was too much pressure, because every minute that went by, I was a minute wasted. So I just got up and then I cycled to 40 hours non-stop. Until then, I took my first 1.5 hour sleep cycle, and I managed to continue that, every night, to take that 1.5 hours. But then the pee breaks, Richard, you're right, actually. So I chose to not get off the bike to save the minutes for sleep. So I actually cycled and peed at the same time. Really challenging. Really challenging.
So I noticed, well, I saw a picture of everyone kind of around you near the end of this world record. And so did that whole tent just stink of pee then?
Well, I had actually my dad on hand. One of his jobs was to come up with a little hospital pee thing, and then I'd pee into it, and then he'd go off and empty it.
Oh, wow. Surely when you were cycling for those first 40 hours, were you not becoming delirious at times?
Not for 40 hours. No, I went probably about 4 or 5 days before it got really kind of delirious and kind of crazy and mental in the brain. So on day 8, I ended up kind of they got me to bed, and I remember going to bed for the hour and a half, and the next thing that happened is I opened my eyes, and everyone was around me that was helping me through, and they were all saying, "Are you okay, Jamie? Are you okay?" And I just looked at them and like, what just happened? And they said that they had to literally drag me from the bed and get me on the bike, and I had my eyes shut for about 30 minutes, and I was pedaling.
Sleep pedaling.
And they said, Jamie, like, should we call the ambulance, because you haven't been here? Like, you're not registering that. We're not getting a response from you. And actually, I started to think, what's just happened over the last few hours? And I was in the most beautiful dream that you could possibly imagine. I actually, it's so vivid now because it's almost like it happened to me, but I was pedaling on a static bike on a truck with all my family and friends around me, and we were driving down a country lane, and I was just overlooking the country, being like, wow, isn't this so beautiful? And it was such a beautiful experience. But yeah, obviously they were thinking about calling the ambulance.
Oh my God. Don't tell me that's your next adventure, to be static cycling on a truck as far as you can.
No, I just cherished that moment, and yeah.
So how did you feel when it finally ended? Was it excitement, relief, exhaustion, or was it everything and more?
Actually, weirdly, I was just numb. Like, I think I was so sleep deprived, and I almost just felt nothing. I mean, in the moment of breaking the record, there was this huge spike because all my family and friends were coming. They'd done a big countdown and fireworks. So I really, the feeling was incredible to achieve it. But after that, actually, I went another 40 more hours to pass the record, but I just felt numb. And as soon as I got off, I went to bed and slept for 16 hours.
Well, that's amazing. And what were you eating throughout that whole time, and how often?
Just fish and salad and really simple stuff. Never any sugar, never any starch, so never any kind of pasta or potato or rice, because again, that's like a sugar. So what we tried to stay clear from was those sugar spikes, and to just run naturally on the human body rather than food.
Mm-hmm. Why did you decide this? Where did you get that information from?
Again, it was from a really interesting guy, Jamie Richards, who kind of said, look, the last thing you want to be doing is trying to fight through sugar crashes. So let's just keep you on really simple food, easy to digest.
And is that something you still do now, or you still enjoy going back to pasta and rice, etc.?
I don't limit myself. Like when it comes to diets and trying to box yourself in, it's like the moment you stick yourself in the prison of like, this is what I can eat and this is what I can't eat, normally you crack. So, but I do try and stick near. It's called, I guess, the paleo kind of theory, where just meat and veg and so yeah, so I now am geared more over to that kind of way of eating because it just works with me really. I don't think there's I'm sure in 5 years' time there'll be more theories, but I've worked out that for me, I run really well and function really well as a human on those types of food.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
More from Jamie in just a moment, but I want to tell you about Sportacino. They are supporting today's podcast. It is the sports show that I present on Facebook, YouTube, and on Periscope every single weekday. We discuss all things related to sports, health, and fitness, be it football, wrestling, cricket, rugby, advances in sports tech and data, and also all of the latest product reviews that you would like to know about related to health and fitness. Go and check it out. Go to sportacino.com, or what I'd love you to do is go and like our page, facebook.com/Sportacino. If you don't know how to spell it, it's SPORTUCCINO. Lots of great content for you there every single weekday. So that is Sportacino. It is sponsoring today's Best in the World with Richard Parr. All right, let's return to the conversation with the Adventureman, Jamie McDonald.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Breaking that world record was absolutely amazing, and you came up with that idea when you were in Iran, and probably before you did that challenge from Bangkok to Gloucester, you thought you'd never be able to break a world record, and you were able to do it. And we've spoken a lot about belief and everything like that. And one of the main reasons I started the Best in the World with Richard Parr was looking at a lot of things as to whether it's nature or is it nurture. And with what you've been able to do, do you think it's the kind of thing where if people's mindset is right, that they can achieve the impossible, that they can break world records?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had no idea that I could have achieved that world record. But I had to somewhere, even if it was like a 1% inside me that believed that maybe I could.
And do you think that is the difference between those who do and those who don't?
Yeah, I think there's everyone out there has the potential, but whether they believe in that or not is probably the difference.
Okay, very interesting. And after you completed the static cycling world record, you didn't stop there, did you? You made a historic journey across Canada, becoming the first person in history to run the 5,000 miles from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific coast without the aid of a support crew. Tell us about that experience.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a bit bonkers. So after the static cycle, Richard, everyone then kept coming up to me in Gloucester. I was like, so, what are you doing next? And I kind of looked at them in disbelief, almost like, what do you mean, what am I doing next? I've done enough already. But actually what it done is I started to think, actually, this year it's been incredibly tough, but it's been incredibly rewarding. And actually, I feel like I am making a difference in the world. And at this point, it had raised £20,000 for the Children's Hospital, and they were now building a new school playroom. And so I thought, I had a visa for Canada, and I was thinking, well, I was going to just go out there and be a backpacker and get drunk and just have some fun. But then I thought, actually, maybe I should go out there and carry on this fundraising journey. So I was sat on the toilet at my mum and dad's house, and I thought, right, well, that's it. So I just burst out the door, and I was like, Mum, Dad, I'm going to run across Canada. And about a week later, I just flew out. I never really ran before. No clue what I was doing, and then I just started a little bit like Forrest Gump, I guess.
Amazing. And again, what was the real highlight of that trip, of that journey?
I guess I had a really challenging moment about halfway across, where I had like a crossroads, and I could either run a shorter route across Canada, and with my visa running out and the winter kicking in, I kind of wanted to take the shorter route, but then I also 15 marathons away, extra on top of the journey. There was one of the children's hospitals that I was raising money for, and I got chatting with them, and I said, "What do you think?" And they said, "Well, we feel like it would make a big difference to us, but we recognise that we want you to achieve this." And when I got to the crossroads, I was thinking, "Oh, what should I do?" In the end, I thought, well, I'm only doing this once, so I went and attempted the extra 15 marathons. In that process, I ended up putting the Flash outfit on, the superhero costume, because I wanted to run a bit faster. And I thought it'd help with fundraising. So I ended up running to the children's hospital. And when I got there, all the doctors and nurses came out, and kids dressed up as superheroes. And in those kind of 15 marathons, it ended up raising about $20,000.
Oh, that's amazing. No, that's a great story. And you set up the Superhero Foundation, is that right?
Yes. So after Canada is kind of when I started to kind of brainstorm, okay, well, how do we help more people, really?
And tell us about what's been going on with the Superhero Foundation recently.
So when I finished the run, I started to think, when you're dead, like, it's pretty sad, really, isn't it, Richard? So how can I kind of leave something that can help people even if I'm not here? And so I came up with the idea with a charity, a registered UK charity called Superhero Foundation, and it started with a dad and a mum that got in touch where I live and said, "Oh, I've heard about your new charity. Our daughter's got cerebral palsy, and we're trying to get her out to an operation to enable her to walk in America, and the NHS are not doing it. Can you help? We need £20,000. And I was thinking, well, I'm not really sure. And then I went to their house and knocked on the door, and the dad answered, and he had a big beer belly, and he was like, "Yeah, oh, sorry, that's my computer calling. That's my girlfriend, actually, she's cycling all the Andes Mountains in South America right now."
Oh, wow.
So I'm sure I'll chat with her in a bit, really. Anyway, back to the story. So I'm going in. So I'm going into their house, and I think, do you know what? Actually, I think we can raise this extra money. So then we got the dad to climb up and down our local hill in Gloucester 75 times until he reached the equivalent of Mount Everest. So we got him right. We got him off and got him going up and down the hill. And I regretted it a little bit in the end because he was crying, and he managed to pull through, and we got £20,000 for his daughter, and they went to America, and it was a huge success. And so now, I guess, Richard, I accidentally learned how to fundraise. So by raising £250,000 on the Canada run. And so now I'm just trying to take what I've learned to then pass it on to families that need treatments that the NHS can't provide. The NHS is amazing, but there are treatments that just are not available yet, and they are in other countries that will make a difference to their life. So we help them raise their own money. And it's not about guilt. We never want to guilt people into donating because it's full of that. And actually what we want to do is we want to inspire people and feel great about giving. And this isn't about people not working their socks off to get what they want. They're role models and superheroes within our world.
Well, Jamie, we've certainly been inspired by listening to you today on The Best in the World with Richard Parr, and I think this is a perfect place to kind of wrap things up. And normally at the end of each show we ask people to promote anything related to their social media, to their website, so please tell us all of that, and also how we can find out more about how we can get involved with fundraising, be it donations or supporting or trying our own challenge.
Oh, do you know what? Thank you, Rich. I really appreciate that you're actually giving me this time, because it is about making a difference, and that's really why we're put on this earth, I think. And I've actually written a book, and I'm making all the proceeds to Superhero Foundation, and I only volunteer with my with the charity. I'm very blessed and lucky enough to do motivational speaking, so that's how I kind of feed myself. And so, yeah, if anyone wants to buy the book, it's called Adventureman, Anyone Can Be a Superhero, and that's on my kind of stepping stones in my life story, but also a big focus on the Canada run. There are a lot of stories on the Canada run, I can tell you, like nutty experiences. And all the royalties from the book will go into Superhero Foundation. So it will almost be like you get a book, but also you'll be making a difference by getting it too. So yeah, and you can also, that's available on Amazon. So just type in Adventureman, one word, anyone can be a superhero. And then you can follow me on social media. So just Jamie McDonald for Facebook and Twitter at Mr. Jamie McDonald, and Instagram. I've just gotten into Instagram. I've only done a few posts. It's a bit weird, but I'm getting into it. I think it will be pretty cool. And then yeah, I just appreciate kind of any support, really.
I'd love to see some throwback Thursdays on your Instagram with some of your amazing pictures from your journey. I'm sure you've got some great ones because you did all your YouTube videos. That would be great to see.
Awesome. Cheers, and you've been amazing as well. Thank you for just asking all the right questions and just genuinely being cool.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you for being the best in the world.
Cheers, Richard. Bye.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
I think we can all agree we had a wonderful time listening to the amazing stories of Jamie McDonald. Please go and buy his book and support the Superhero Foundation. If you like world record holders, I've got some really good recommendations for you on the best in the world. Go back and listen to the paddleboarding world record holder Damien Ryder. That's an amazing story. And also have a listen to Lisanne Van Vuren, who was part of the first all-women crew to sail across the Pacific Ocean. They travelled 8,446 miles for 257 days. She was part of that team, and we hear some amazing things from Lisanne. We've also got lots of other people from all different walks of the sporting world. You can listen to Lee Selby, the boxing world champion, maybe Laura Geitz, the netball world champion. Sean Murphy is a snooker world champion. We've also got Ian Williams, the Sailing World Match Racing Tour champion. Lots of amazing content on the best in the world, so please go back and listen to them. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and also give us a rating and review. It really helps the popularity of this show. That's it for this week's episode. I'll be back next Wednesday learning from another sports star who is the best in the world.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.